So hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm going to try to talk from the podium as much as I can. And if at any point you can't hear me or you feel like the people at home can't hear me, please let me know. I think that this is a very unique place to be, right? I'm the bookend presenter of a multi-day conference on a beautiful sunny day, and it's after lunch. So who wants to be me, right? With that in mind, I do have to say thank you, genuinely from my heart. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot that I build something and you came to check it out. So I'm grateful for that and want you to know that in advance. Welcome to the people that are joining us online. There's 10 or so folks that are listening from other places in the country, so that's all good stuff as well. My name is Rana Yablonsky. Try saying that 3 times really fast. Rana is just fine. I work for Safe Project, a national nonprofit. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a couple minutes. Want to make sure you're in the right place. The title of the presentation is Cultivating Person-Centered Connections with Discipline and Justice-Impacted Youth. And because there's only a couple of you here, I don't want to give you the green light to walk away, right? But you know what? If you are in the wrong place and you didn't intend to be here, you can sneak out. I already said, if you don't have a stack of papers, you do need them. The presentation will make a little bit more sense to you if you have those in front of you. Also want to thank the conference planning team. Wow, this conference has been amazing, right? So if you've been here for several days, I don't think that you could ask for anything better. So thank you to the conference planning team. I know, Jeannie, you're part of that, so thank you so much. Thank you for welcoming Safe Project as a presenter. And again, I'm honored to be the closing chapter. So hopefully what I'm about to say, what I'm about to share can stay fresh in your minds and will be something that you can take back to your community. So before we get started, how about we just kind of take a deep breath? Settle in. We're almost there. We're almost done. And I want you to just kind of be comfortable. I will ask that you hold a lot of your questions until the end, just simply because this is only an hour. The hour is going to go fast. I definitely want to hear from you. I definitely want to talk to you. If there's time at the end, we'll do that during the official hour. If there's not time, I'll stick around as long as I can. And if we still can't get it in, my business cards are up here, and I welcome you to reach out to me. So a couple of different ways that hopefully we can connect after or at some other time if you need to run to, because I understand there's a lot going on. A little bit about me. My bio is actually in the conference material, so at your leisure, you can take the time to read up on that. There's one thing that is not there that I really think is important and that I'd love for you to know about me before I tell you a little bit more about the company that I'm representing and the program that I want to introduce you to. And that is 21 years ago, the course of my life drastically changed. And that happened whenever I reluctantly and contingently accepted a position in an adolescent inpatient treatment facility. So again, reluctantly and on a contingency, because I said when that position was offered to me multiple times that I didn't want to do it. And I said, I don't want to work with those kids in that place. And so I'm openly admitting and being vulnerable with you and telling you from the very beginning that I had this stereotypical view of that's not where I want to be with my career and that's not where I want to go. Nonetheless, I have to openly also admit to you in the same breath, in the same sentence, that my life was drastically changed. An unbelievable connection happened in that treatment facility that changed the course of my life. What happened was those youth in that program potentially changed my life more than I may have changed theirs at that time. I started off as a part-time position and shortly thereafter accepted a full-time position within that treatment facility, never ever thinking that I would do such a thing. And it's very interesting because the treatment facility had inpatient, it had outpatient, it had IOP, intensive outpatient, and I was about to build a prevention department within this organization, which was really cool because how many treatment facilities actually have the prevention department built right in-house? So in my 17 years of working in that, I stayed there for 17 years, by the way, I saw the face of addiction every day. But I also saw the face of recovery, and I saw the impact of life-fueling connections. And while I was in that position, 7 years after accepting that position, I don't know what I was thinking, but I also accepted another position in the community. So simultaneously, I was the coordinator of an in-house prevention department, as well as the director of a community coalition where we receive funding through the Office of National Drug Control to have a drug-free communities coalition. I did that for 10 years. That coalition is still in that community 6 years past drug-free communities funding and doing amazing work. So my career journey has been amazing. I've been incredibly blessed. There have been so many people that have played a role in my journey, and I truly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them. So now I work for Safe Project. Safe Project's a national nonprofit organization that's working to contribute in a tangible way to overcoming the addiction epidemic in the United States. This is a unique opportunity. I've only been with the organization about 16 months, and so when I say new, I definitely mean new. But it's an amazing organization of very committed and compassionate people, and a lot of people are not aware of Safe Project, so I am going to take a minute right now to just kind of introduce it to you very briefly and invite you to find out more if you're intrigued on your own. So Safe Project has 4 distinct initiatives: safe campuses, safe communities, safe workplaces, and safe veterans. Within those initiatives, there are 6 fueling lines of operation. I'm not sure if you can read them, so I'm going to announce or read to them what they are. The first one is public awareness. The second one is full spectrum prevention. The third one is prescription and medication abuse and response. The next one's law enforcement and criminal justice. The next one's treatment and recovery. And the next one's family outreach and support. The founders of our company believe, and as do I, that a multi-pronged approach that includes all impacted sectors is the approach that will be most effective in saving lives. And so when I say dynamic company, I absolutely mean that. And the part of the company where I am, again, I am in the Safe Communities Initiative, working to build a new division of the company that serves youth and young adults. And so it's a really unique opportunity. And today I'm about to share with you a brand new program. You're the first people who have seen it outside of the team of people that have worked with me. And so this is pretty daggone exciting. And so at any rate, I invite you to learn more about Safe Project. It's an easy website. If there's time at the end, I'll go ahead and open up the website, let you check it out. And if not, the address is on the note card that's in front of you. This is the learning objectives for the next hour in which we have together. These were all outlined in the app that you have, as well as the conference materials and maybe some of the reasons in which you were driven to be here. This is what I hope to accomplish. So again, I want to introduce to you the Safe Choices Connections program, which is a tool for eliminating disparities for youth who are directly impacted by school discipline or the justice impacted youth. In addition to that, I'm going to talk to you about a really unique component of that program called the Flourishing Formula. I'm not going to have the time to tell you every single component of it, but this is the root of the program, and I certainly want you to understand the root of the program and why the root of the program works to support youth, again, who are impacted by school discipline or are involved with the justice system in some capacity. I also want to talk to you about the Connections program and why we believe it will work for the desistance process or trajectory, which is a trajectory away from justice involvement. And the last thing I want to do today at the very end is talk to you about collaboration and how it is we might be able to offer this program if you're interested at a community where you're from. All right, to level set and kind of set the stage, why don't we ponder on this for just a minute. This is an anonymous quote that I came across, and I think it's so relevant, and I have to tell you that almost every session that I have been in since the conference has started, this quote is relevant for. So the idea that each and every one of us, whether we know it or not, is reaching out, and we are aching to be accepted, longing to be loved, and craving for connection. I just described to you my life's journey, my career journey, and I've said to you that I wouldn't be where I was without life-fueling connection. So you're going to hear this over and over again throughout the presentation today. First thing I want you to do is there's a worksheet in front of you. Hopefully, if you don't have a worksheet in front of you, pull one from someplace near you. And I'd like for you to, while you're pondering this quote, I'd like for you to write down in your own best definition what the word connection means. So just go ahead, take a minute. If you don't have anything to write with, I'll come around and give you something. If the noise is too much in the back, I'm okay with you shutting the doors if you feel distracted by that. If it's interfering with the reception, you can close it too, I don't mind. All right. What I'd like for you to do now is to look to a person to your left, to your right, in front or behind you, and just tell them what you said. What did you write down as it relates to the word connection? Yeah, right now we're only your only homework assignment right now is to write out your definition of connection. And now that you've had just a minute or two to talk to the folks around you, I'm hoping you're making a connection, right? I want you to link up with the people around you. Share your own definition of connection in its layman terms. All right, so while you're continuing to do that, I'm wondering if any of your answers reflect any of these things. So did any of you say that a connection would be a relationship with a person, a thing, or an idea? So when you think of connection, is the first thing that comes to your mind a relationship? That's one option. Another might be a fact or a state of mind, something that's common, shared interests, shared efforts, and I'm wondering if that even happened here. Those of you who've been here all week long, there's intersectionality, right, between the work that we do. So you would think that there would be amazing connections being made just this week in and of itself, of a conference of over 700 people who all have common careers and common interests. All right, the next one is a place of unity, where things are coming together. So maybe you think of a connection as something coming together with adhesive. Another definition, I pulled all of this stuff from the internet, I didn't make this stuff up. It's an act or an instance of joining two or more things together, right? So these are all definitions. There are no right or wrong answer. These are just ways in which we might think about connection. And when we talk about life-fueling connection, the idea that we all might look at this just a smidgen different. All right, so the value of connection, I'm setting the stage, right? I mentioned to you just a minute ago that it's really important for you to understand life-fueling connections and the value of connection. So the next thing I want you to do is on your worksheet, this is individual work. The question is, think about a time in your life as a young person. So I really do kind of want you to go back. For some of us, that's a little bit harder than others, but think back to your childhood or to your adolescence and think about a person that played a role in your life. Who was it that made a difference? Who did you have a special connection with? And then the next part of that question is, how did that make you feel? So as you're thinking about that, I might give you some ideas because you might be struggling and I just kind of want to aid you along. So maybe that connection was with a mentor, a coach, an instructor, a teacher, a parent, a grandparent. Maybe you had a special connection with a brother, with a sister, or a cousin. Maybe it was a pastor or a faith-based leader. Maybe it was a caregiver. So when you think back and you ponder about this very special connection in your young life, How did that connection make you feel? And the nice thing is as I look out, I see smiles. And so that's kind of what I was hoping it would do, right? As you think about these connections, I'm hoping that it evokes something that makes you feel good, that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. Maybe it takes you back to a special memory or something that you did together with this person. Is there anyone who's willing to share? I don't want to ask or pry, but if there's anyone that's comfortable, yeah, go ahead, thanks. So you felt valued from this person. Are you willing to share who the person was? No way. That's amazing. So he noticed you. He was paying attention. He made a life-fueling connection. He said, I recognize this in you. How would you like to have this? And it's a lifelong connection. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. How about anyone else? One more. Let's do one more. Anyone willing to share? Yeah, go ahead.
I picked someone that I actually met when I was, 17 at a food bank that I was doing community service for.
Okay.
I had a felony and had copious amounts of service that I needed to do. And this person, his job was just to monitor me. He ended up mentoring me, loaning me his car to do my driver's test with, and it just made me feel good that someone that didn't know me cared about my future.
Right. So thank you so much for sharing. Another example of where a life-fueling connection has changed the course of your life, right? And the fact that this person also noticed you, cared about you, saw you as a person, accepted you for who you were, where you were, right? And helped you and aided you along. So perfect. So that's the kind of response again. And I could see it in others as I see you writing, I can see you smiling. And that's the goal. That's what we want to do. We, by human nature, are designed for human connection. How many times have we heard this say? Every keynote speaker that we heard speak this week talked about that, right? The importance of feeling connected, the importance of feeling that you belong somewhere. And so now I'm going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum. I asked 5 volunteers before class started if they, I might have felt like voluntold, but there are 5 people in the room who have pictures. They're going to come on up. They're going to line up in order. They all have numbers. So if the 5 of you who have those pictures that I asked you to come on up, and I know that they can only see us if we're in the square. And so if you want to line up 1 through 5, number 1 in the square, 2 to the right, 3, 4, 5. And then is it your this little team building exercise built right in. And if you can't all fit at this time, is when it's your turn, I need you to be in that. So the most important thing is that during your turn, you're seen. Right on. All right. So the person that has number 1. Oh, wait, directions for the rest of you. Sorry. Thank you, volunteers. Hold tight. Let me make sure that everyone else knows what they need to do. All right. So on the worksheet in front of you, numbered 1 through 5, what I want you to do is whenever they flip the picture, they're going to do it on cue. I'm going to ask them to do it in sequence. As soon as they flip the picture, I'd like for you as the audience to write down the emotion that's evoked immediately. So on your worksheet, it should say numbers 1 through 5. There shouldn't be anything there right now. When they flip the picture, you're going to write the first thing that comes to your mind. So here we go. Number 1, flip your picture. So what you can see here is the classic, can you hear me now? So what happens when you are not connected? What emotions evoked when your cell phone will not work? I'm surprised nobody's saying anything out loud. All right, number 2. In this image, really kind of hope this doesn't happen to anyone today, tomorrow, or in the next couple days as we're preparing to fly and return back to our hometowns. But what emotion is evoked when you miss your connecting flight? Right? So what happens? That's what you're writing down on number 2. All right, volunteer number 3. The picture here, again, also hope this doesn't happen to our drivers and the people who came here by motor vehicle, but what happens or what emotions evoked in you when you sit down in your car, you're ready to go, we're at this fast pace, but the battery's dead. There's no electronic connection and your car will not start. Yikes, right? All right. The next image, 4, this is picture number 4. What this picture depicts is in a special relationship, there is a communication breakdown. You find yourself saying, that's not at all what I meant to say, or darn, my words came out all wrong. So there's not a verbal connection happening. How does that make you feel, and what emotion is evoked when you find yourself saying, that's not at all what I meant to say, or gosh, my words came out all wrong? In volunteer number 5, picture number 5, this is a young person. And there's a couple of things that you might be able to pull from this image. So maybe this young person's feeling isolated and alone, there but invisible. No one seems to notice. Or maybe he's feeling that he's there, but he's an outcast and not being included. What emotion do you think is evoked, or maybe this in your own life, you've experienced such a thing? What emotion do you think of when you look at that image? All right. Thank you, volunteers. If you just want to put your papers on the front table here, you can go back and fill them out. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help. And so now, just kind of shout out to me some of the words that you had written in no particular order. So whether it's the cell phone, can you hear me now? If it's the missed flight, the car that won't start, if it's a breakdown in communication in a special relationship, when you're being misunderstood, or your words come out all wrong, or is it a situation whenever you're feeling a disconnect because you're not feeling like you belong? You're there, but you're invisible. You're there, but nobody sees you. They're not including you, so maybe you feel like an outcast. So what I'd like to do now is just engage you by saying out loud. I don't want to call on anyone or have you, unless you choose to. But if this is making you feel uncomfortable, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make you feel uncomfortable. I'm truly trying to set the stage for the presentation. So go ahead. Somebody said, right. So maybe a feeling of frustration. Unvalued. What was the first thing you said?
Oh, I was saying for number 5.
Oh, unvalued for number 5. Super. Thank you. What else? A couple more. I'm sorry? Irritated. Panicked. Anything else? Defeated. Right. Drained. Is that what you said? Yeah, so we're feeling sad, frustrated, alone, scared, annoyed. So this is the exact opposite of what we were just feeling a couple of minutes ago. And see how quickly a feeling of being disconnected can change your state of mind. And in turn, can change your behavior, can change your mood, and can change the course of your day, right? If we miss a flight this afternoon, it could potentially change the course of this day, maybe tomorrow. The cell phone might not work now, but we'll eventually get it fixed. We'll hold it up, right? We'll stand on the toilet like an RV or something. I don't know why I think that's so funny. Bless you. Woo! Or when the car battery is repaired, the car will start and you'll be on your way. So yeah, it's okay to be annoyed. It's okay to feel frustrated, but eventually you'll get there. In the scenarios of 4 and 5, however, the impact of those feelings can tend to last so much longer and sometimes a lifetime. If you're feeling annoyed and frustrated and left out and burdened for a lifetime, can you imagine how that then interferes with your attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors for every other component of your life? And so with the Connections program, we think that lots of individuals who feel those feelings need additional support. And I'm excited to tell you a little bit more about that. The next couple slides are about data. I'm going to try to make this not dry, but again, in setting the stage to introduce the program, I think it's important. And the other thing that I want to share with you is that if the youth are feeling, so again, I'm going to focus in on the youth sector for the majority of the rest of my conversation here. If they're not connected, then the opposite of connection is disconnected. And so how many youth do we then feel are potentially disconnected? If I ask you to guess, what percentage might you say? What percentage of the United States population of youth are disconnected? Well, according to this data source, and by the way, all these are uploaded. You should have access to all of this. And if you don't, then I can send it to you separately. But nonetheless, what this data source is saying is, this is the Measure of America, information from there saying that there's 12.6%, or a little more, almost 4.8 million students or young people that are disconnected in such a way that they're not in school or not working. And so when I look at that, I'm like, gosh, I feel like there's a lot more than that. And so for the purpose of this data, I think one of the things I wanted to point out is the number of youth. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never really put a number on how many youth there were. So 38 million youth in the United States. That's a lot. And again, this data source was specifically able to measure the number that were disconnected, not in school and not working, as 12.6%. Fair enough, right? That's easy enough to measure. But what I think when I look at this is that the number has to be higher, because there are students that are in school and there are students that are working who feel disconnected, and we just gave examples of why. They're not feeling like they belong. They're not feeling like they're fitting in. And so in my mind, it's much higher than that. But nonetheless, even if it was just 12.6%, we can't ignore that. That's a gap or a seam that, in my professional and personal opinion, cannot be ignored. The next thing, and sharing some good news, and so I'm going to tie good news. We're going to kind of seesaw back and forth, right? So according to this is the states of the United States outlined, and what this says, in case you can't see it, is that 44 states, including the District of Columbia, have declines of 50% or more of youth confinement. And so, again, you could look at that and say, well, that's really good, right? You can say that 50%, 44 states, including the District of Columbia, had declines of 50% or more in youth confinement rates. And this is data from 2019, the most current data source from ONDCP. So I think that, again, this is indicative of potentially good news. And what I also want to point out is that the decline is greater with this color. So states that have this darker green color have more of a decline. The states that come up in color, I know I can't step away and talk at the same time. So as they come up, the orange color is states that have had increases. So even though we had states that have decreases of 50% or more, we have some states that have increases. And again, in my professional and personal opinion, we can't ignore that. Incarceration. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So the data is from the Office of Juvenile Justice and Protection. This is confinement rates. So again, maybe we could say this is some additional good news, right? So this is also data from OJJDP, or the Office of Juvenile Justice. And what they're telling us here is that youth confinement rates are down from 70%. Again, these are incarceration rates from the 1995 peak. And so from right here, 1995 is the peak through now. So you see this kind of trajectory on a downward path. And according to the data, that represents 70% reductions of youth that are experiencing incarceration or exposure to the juvenile justice system. The second line says that there's also, it's closely followed by youth arrests. So there's a decline of 70%. This is youth themselves. And there's a decline of 74% of youth that are actually being arrested. So, okay, promising, right? Promising data. But that still means that there's 30% that are. And so we don't want to ignore that. So again, when I tell you that I'm seesawing back and forth with the data, we can say some good news, but we can also say that the data is indicative of gaps or seams where 30% of the youth population could potentially be falling through the cracks. And so nonetheless, still alarming. I feel confident in labeling this one not so good news when they say 50% of the youth that were detained or incarcerated for non-violent offenses. And in some cases, offenses that wouldn't be considered committing a crime on an adult level. And so I think that one of when you read the description in the data that I gave you, or the introduction to the program, it said that there was 1,909 youth that are being arrested every day in the United States. So that's a way to quantify it, right? And so we're talking percentages, but when we get to the nuts and bolts of it, the percentages are important, but let's get to the numbers. 1,909 youth every day being arrested. And along with those arrests comes criminalization. We just heard this from our keynote this morning. Comes the blaming and the shaming and the stigmatizing, stereotypical views that come along with it. And somebody in the back of the room used the word bad, and she's like, can you define bad for me? And oftentimes they're labeled as being bad, right? I'm a bad kid, or that's the bad kid. And remember, I admitted to you that at a point in my career journey, I openly said, I don't know if I want to work there. And so when we say that the youth are bad, when we label them as bad, oftentimes it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They live it out to the fullest extent. And so when we were working at Safe Project and we're building this youth and young adult bodied center of work, one of the mindset was, let's build something that focuses in on this population. Let's do something for the disparate population of youth that are falling through the cracks, the percentages of youth that are still being labeled, blamed, and shamed as being bad kids. And so that's what we did. And so for over a year, almost a year now, we've been building this program. So for the rest of the program, I'm going to spend our time together. I'm going to be spending some time introducing to you to what we call the Connections program. And this is exciting. Again, I mentioned to you, you're the first group of people to hear this about this program outside of the staff who work for the organization. And so the idea, again, is to build a program that's specifically targeted at disparate populations of discipline and justice impacted youth. The flyer that's on the screen is also on the table in front of you, and it was also attached in the app, so you have it electronically as well. And it's also on the Safe Project website where you can get a lot more information. I'm not going to read that to you. You have that in front of you. You can take it with you. A couple of things that aren't on the piece of paper that I think are important in regards to the program before I get into some of the nuts and bolts and introduce it to you at a higher level. One thing I want you to know right off the bat is that this is a program. It is not punishment. So as I'm introducing this to you, I really want you to keep that in mind. The program is designed to create a welcoming environment, an environment where it can be an empowering growth experience for the youth attendees and never should feel like punishment. The program will include a combination of conversations and interactive journaling, as well as games. We will share some videos, activities and workbooks, things like that. So there'll be some desk work part of it. But one of the most unique components of the Connections program is the opportunity to do service connection projects. And I'm going to tell you more about that. And so I promise you I will not forget, but that's one of the most unique. So we're going to do some skill building, and we're also going to do some actual boots on the ground efforts. And the other part that's not listed on the paper that I think is important is for you to realize that this is an instructor-led program. And this will not be a program where they can sit down at a computer and just kind of, computer learning and online learning has its place. We learned a lot about that through this season of COVID. But this program is not designed for that. And so it will not be conducive to remote learning. There might be components of it that we could bend for communities that prefer to have remote learning. But if we're in the business of making life-fueling connections, we need to be with people. And we need to move away from staring at a computer screen. I can tell you both of my children would take online courses, either yell out to each other, what's the answer to this, look on their phones to get the answer, plug in the answers, and have it done with. And so engaging with the computer screen wasn't always the best way for them to have holistic development that supported whole person and that supported their potential for growing. The Connections program is broken into modules. I'm going to get into each one of these. This is also not on the one pager, so important for you to know that it's segmented and each module is meant to be built upon the other. So the idea is that they can't just come in at any given time. It's a cohort. The class will be offered from beginning to end to the same group of students at the same time. Early on in class 1 and 2, we talk about the flourishing formula. I'm going to just define that to you in a couple of slides in much more detail. In module 2, we're going to be building out knowledge and utilizing some evidence-based practices or processes that involve interactive journaling, the trans-theoretical model of change, essential life skills. Again, I'll get into that in more detail. All I'm doing right now is kind of framing to you how the program works in your mind. I get lots of questions about what that's going to look like. And so these 3 modules the third one is the execution of that meaningful and powerful service connection project. So those are the 3 distinct modules offered over the course of 25 hours. This is 4 classroom hours, so it gets a little confusing when I say 3 modules, but 4 classrooms. And that's because the modules are broken into segments and taught in increments throughout each of the 4 classes. So again, it's 4 classes, 3 hours each, with 13 hours dedicated to the Service Connection Project, with the opportunity to have additional hours if indeed they are. The whole time that I'm talking to you about the Connections program, I really want you to think about this as an empowering personal growth experience. And one of the things that I didn't say to you, let's go back, is right here. Gosh, it's so hard for me to stand right here. I just want to move around. When you look at the one pager, I want you to know that we were so intentional in the development of this program that the word connection or the name of the program is written in cursive. And it was kind of funny whenever I talked to the staff about the font of the name. I got so much pushback about writing it in cursive because I guess they don't teach kids cursive in school anymore. And they're like, nobody's going to be able to read it. And I'm like, well, pick like an elementary level of cursive so that it's not like if my cursive, you might not be able to read it, but look, I hope you can read that. So I'd love to have your opinion on that because there was a lot of going back and forth on whether or not the name of the program should be written in cursive. But I really think that it's this notion that we're talking about connection so much so that the name of the program is the letters are connected. Another unique component of the program that I think is pretty cool is that all of the artwork on every page of the student manuals are one-line or single-line art. And so once the art design was started, it was single line, so every image is connected throughout. And they're designed in such a way for student learners to use colored pencils. So if they're learners that need to fidget or move while learning, colored pencils and markers and whatnot will be provided so that they can do that throughout. And so those are just a couple of things that you're not going to see written on the one pager that I think are unique qualities that are important for you to know on how intentional this program was during that development stage. All right, so I went over that. This is just right from the one pager that you have in front of you. And I thought this didn't do enough explaining of all of the different components. Nonetheless, this is some easy way. This is the high level end of looking at the program without having it broken down. So you have all of that in front of you, so I'm gonna skip this part. This is the flourishing formula. We had lots of discussions about the creation of a flourishing formula and the notion of using math. And some people are like, if you make it look like math, you're going to turn off people that don't like math, and they're going to turn it off right away. So we tried really hard to not make it look too much like math. It's called a formula. We talk about elements in the formula. We talk about the parts, the sum of all the parts being greater than each part alone. So when we talk about that, that's as much math as it is. You don't need to be any higher level than that to understand. But the flourishing formula is broken into your passions. And so the idea here is that you, or i.e. the student is you, and they are built into every part of this formula. And so in this simple yet complex formula, because we are as beings are complex. The first part of this and the emphasis will be focusing in on the youth and their passions. What are the things that make them tick? What are the things that they love? And we're going to have them do some self-reflecting and bringing light to the things that there are their internal strengths. And so when we say this is a strength-based program, it builds upon the strengths of you or the individual themselves, the student participant. We're going to take then their personal passions, their personal interests, and we're going to add that to their people. Right? And so it's an elevated sense of self-identity. These are the things that make me, self-identity. The second part are your people, your life-fueling connections. Who are the people that are always going to be there for you? Who are the people like the people you just defined on your worksheet? Who are the people that are going to show up on a day when you are struggling, like this morning, a young boy that's struggling with grief, or the other day, a young boy that was told he didn't belong in some of the keynote addresses that I'm referencing. Who are your people? You just wrote down who some of your people were. We want them to take a very similar and meaningful and mindful effort to identify who are their life sources. The next thing then is identifying your possibilities or your opportunities. And so this part of it gives the students the opportunity to work with us and us to work with them to figure out ways in which they can display their passion and their people. So a lot of their possibilities will be within their community, whatever their community might look like. And a lot of times youth will have negative connotations of their community. They don't think that their communities appreciate them. Their communities have often labeled and blamed and shamed them. And so what we want to do is give them a meaningful opportunity and possibilities to connect with their communities. So when we work through the formula, again, it's your passions plus your people plus your possibilities equating to your personal potential pathway. This is a process that will not be done during the course of the class, right? We're going to introduce this to them. We're going to provide them with this foundation. We're going to work with them and give them tools then that they can take with them for a lifetime. The next section that we'll go into is working on essential life skills. And yesterday I was in a session that somebody, if you're in prevention, which I have been for years, we talk about our life skills as our protective factors, right? These are the things that offset or buffer against risk factors. When we talk about life skills, we say that we need to work on or develop life skills. And we might say things like self-identity, self-worth, self-concept. But what we want to do in the Connections program is move beyond term definition. There's more to it than understanding the definition of the word. And so in the Connections program, we'll use exercises like interactive journaling, behavior rehearsal, and projects that they'll work, like case studies, that they'll do and use these life skills. And these life skills then will become part of their everyday, authentically and naturally. But in addition to that, we want them to know what life skills they need during a crisis moment or whenever something's going wrong. You have a pool of skills that you can pull from. Remember and from the behavior rehearsal and from the case studies that we do, we're hoping that then they will draw from that and remember that they themselves have the ability to build the skill and then to actually use it or bring it to fruition. And so one of the examples that I have here, and without looking at my notes, I would have forgot this, but life skills, one way that we'll define this is life skills are like tools to a carpenter. It's like sporting equipment to an athlete. It's like ingredients to a chef. With the right tools, with the right equipment, and with the right ingredients, you can move forward in achieving your personal potential pathway. So with all the right skills in place, they can build upon the flourishing formula and in turn achieve their personal potential. The next thing then is the trans-theoretical model of change, much more easily said as the stages of change. So we will introduce this to them. And listen, there was some folks that thought that maybe this was too much for young people. And I really pushed hard for this because, again, I've been in this field for 21 years. And how many times have I come in contact with youth who have said, I'm never going to amount to anything and nothing ever changes. And I tried that, but I failed. So maybe they tried out for a team and didn't make it. They tried out they studied for a test and still didn't pass. They tried to mend a relationship, but it keeps going back. And so they feel like they're failures, and they don't understand that the process of change takes time, and that change doesn't happen swiftly or quickly, that all of us work through stages of change. And it's so weird. In my family, sometimes I'll be like, what stage of change are you in? Are you in the pre-contemplation stage? And so my kids know these words because I use them. Are you contemplating change, or are you actually in the action stage? And so we learn that when you work through the stages of change, it's a cycle, right? Sometimes you go forward, sometimes you go backwards, but you can have a whole lot more hope if you recognize that change is a process, right? That you're gonna work through this. And the process of deliberate change means that you continue to work at it. You continue to take a step, one step in front of the other. And so I absolutely love the lessons that we have incorporated in the Connections program around change. I think the kids will have a lot of fun with some of the ways in which we introduce the stages of change in an interactive learning style, so that it doesn't feel so much like science or work, that it just becomes an authentic part of the way in which they live their lives, and recognizing that change is a process, and that change can happen, and that they themselves, and fulfilling the flourishing formula, can be part of the change and empowered to be so. All right, the Service Connection Project. So this is one of the most unique components of this program. So this, the Service Connection Project is introduced in Class 2 and will be a part of Class 3 and 4. And if we need more time, we recognize in some scenarios we might need additional time. But the idea here is that they will be able to earn service connection hours. So while simultaneously attending a course, while simultaneously fulfilling the master formula, flourishing formula, while simultaneously learning about their passions and who their people are. It's just like this aha experience. And in the end, instead of being belittled by their community, instead of feeling like they don't connect to their community, they can say, I gave back to my community in this way. So all of SAFE Project's community service, we have a plethora or a platter of options that we're going to present and that we'll work through. All of them have a couple of things in common, and that is the recognition of recovery as reality. The other part of that is the focus on reduction of stigma as it relates to substance addiction and mental health challenges. So everything that we do will be pro-health and positive. And the last thing in common for all of the Service Connection projects is the bridge between prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery. So we're going to link these communities together. Remember I said earlier on in some of my coalition work and with all of the systems of operations at SAFE Project, that collaborative multi-pronged approach of bringing everybody together. We all can play an active role. And that's what happens whenever we bring the youth into the community with this mindset, utilizing Service Connection projects that have a focus on this. And so, excuse my language, but whenever I was describing this to some folks, I said, I don't want kids shoveling shit anymore, right? This is about giving back in a meaningful way. This is not about demeaning them and saying, you are bad and you did this, so now you need to go out and do this dirty grime job. No, this is about you giving back to your community and growing within your community, growing as an individual, growing in your connections, growing in your personal potential. So I'm super excited about this and the impact that they can make. SAFE Project also has a pool of volunteers from across the country of SAFE volunteers. And for youth that we recognize that some youth might come into the program and say, I don't have any people. I don't have anybody. And so we do have volunteers that we can set up with mentoring, and we already have this in place with 400 college campuses and the work that we're doing with on a collegiate level. And so we have some plans in our filing cabinet and some ideas and resources in our toolbox, so to speak, to help in some of the challenging situations that we think that we might encounter when working with the youth who end up being participants in this program. So a couple really quick one-liners on what the program is. So if I were to say to you, what is the Connections program? These are some of the types of things that I might say to you if I had to talk to you in an elevator, or if you want to describe this program to somebody within your work environment. And also, I want to mention that if you, I'm so sorry when I only say work. I know some of you are family advocates, and that is your work as well. So if this is part of your endeavor and you're here representing family, this program can also serve you, and you can become an advocate to promote it. So I meant to say that earlier, and I'm sorry that I didn't. So the Connections program is innovative and evidence-informed. It's rooted in the flourishing formula. The Connections program is about life-fueling, person-centered connections. It's all about the youth themselves and those life-fueling lifelines. The Connections program takes a holistic approach to personal wellness, utilizing a strength-based foundation. We're gonna find out what the youth what are their passion, who are their people, what makes them tick, not what we think they should do, but who they authentically and genuinely are. The project consists of interwoven modules or classroom sessions that build upon each other, that are sequential in nature. The Connections program aims to reduce youth recidivism. It will serve as a positive turning point for the youth attendees and supports the desistance process. For those of you who aren't aware of the word desistance means a trajectory away from the criminal justice system. So how is it that we can do that? This is an answer to a way that we can do that with a positive approach to youth development and overall youth wellness. The last thing I promised you that I would cover today is how do we do this, right? Oh wait, let me go back. One of the things that I think is important here, and the way that I know like some people like to surmise or kind of put a bow on it, is the who, what, when, where, and why. So if these one-liners are too much, let me try the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, and why. So the what is the Connections program. The who are the disparate populations of discipline and justice involved youth. The when is upon request, whenever a community wants it. If there's time today, I'm going to show you how you can go online and communicate with me directly to bring this program to you. And that's the when is upon scheduling. The where, again, upon scheduling. Right now, we're working on scheduling 3 pilot implementations of this program. We also have a strategic plan in place to scale this program across the country, utilizing our other lines of operation. So the things that we're already doing with our campuses initiative and our workplace initiative. And I can show you that. Let me go back to that. So when I talk about Safe Project and our lines of operation, these lines of operations are all fully developed. So our Safe Campuses team has relationships with more than 400 colleges and universities. In fact, next weekend, I'm going to DC to meet our 5th class of CRLA, our Collegiate Recovery Leadership Academy. And so we have 50 students coming from all over the country who will participate in our program through the campuses team. And we also work, that's doing things like recovery communities on college campuses, recovery housing on college campuses, recovery allies on college campuses, and things like that. What we want to do is create a collaboration between the campuses teams and the work that they're doing in the criminal justice field. So students that are in school to go into the criminal justice, or those who are going into counseling, social work, and whatnot. So we'll be working with some of those college level students to help scale this program, the Connections program, across the country. In addition to that, we'll be working with our Safe Workplaces team. So we have another whole unit of our organization that works with workplaces. And so we do trainings on the site of any employer, right? It can be anybody. And so the idea is that we work with employers on recognizing the benefit of second chance employment. We work with employers to offer naloxone or Narcan training. We have big contracts in place right now, working with the Home Builders Association, for example. So construction companies to healthcare companies. So we have a dynamic team of folks that offer that level of training to make sure that companies have a robust and healthy employee assistance program so that everybody can be safe in the workplace, including families impacted by substance use and mental health. We also have a Safe Veterans initiative, which is robust. There is at your seat a one-pager about the work of our veterans team. So we have staff, a large portion of our staff are veterans themselves. A large portion of our staff are individuals that are in recovery. A large portion of our staff are people that have lived experience. whether it's with substance use or mental health challenges. So we have lived experience, we have professional experience, and as it relates to our veterans, one of our most common trainings, remember I said we offer programs and trainings, for veterans is something called Unpacking Your Emotional Rock. And we work with veterans communities across the country, and I put one of those on your table. Gosh, there's so much to say. The other thing I have in front of you is the No Shame Pledge, and so our company is committed to reducing stigma linked to addiction and mental health challenges. The No Shame Education program is a supplement to the No Shame Pledge. If you guys want to make me look like a shining star, you can go ahead and use that QR code and take the No Shame Pledge. If you aren't comfortable taking the No Shame Pledge, don't feel compelled like you have to do it. But if you want education, we have a No Shame Education program that we debuted last April, and near to 8,000 people have taken the No Shame Education program. It's free, doesn't cost anything. You can download it from our website. But hey, listen, I would suggest you wait till January, because right now we're working with George Mason University and Marymount University to have scientific studies of the No Shame Education program, and it will re-debut in January. So the latest, greatest version of the No Shame Education program is coming in January. No one else knows that except you guys right now and anyone else who's watching, but some great things happening there. So the point of me telling you all of this is that all of these initiatives and lines of operation, we are mindful about interlocking our efforts. We're crosswalking as a team because we believe that all impacted sectors can play a role in the solutions. My primary focus is working with the youth and young adult sector. Nonetheless, every single day I'm connecting with my staff in these arenas, and all of them endorse this program and are working on helping to scale it across the country. All right, so how do you get in touch with me? Again, my name is Rana Yablonsky. Again, try saying that 5 times fast. I live in Pennsylvania, southwestern Pennsylvania. Safe Project is in DC. I'm going to DC next week to meet the cohort of 50 students. I'm bringing youth with me, which I'm super excited about, so that we can connect them with community and college campuses opportunities, so that they themselves want to enter into that. To advance their education, they know the opportunities that exist to do so in recovery communities where they're safe on campus. So whether it's mental health or substance use. All right, so that's my, wait a second, that's not me, is it? Oh. Let me make sure I think, when I look at my own name, it's like looking at your own phone number. All right, Rana@safeproject.us. That's right, awesome. Perfect. I don't know why I thought the US part wasn't right after my email address, but that is correct. And then, of course, the Safe Project website, safeproject.us. What time is it, and do we have the time to go there? What time is it? What time am I supposed to end? Oh, perfect. Boom. All right. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have questions or you need to talk to me, I'm going to stay. If you need to leave and catch your flight, I do not want to be the reason that you don't have a connection. So safe travels. Thank you so much for joining me, for showing up. I appreciate you being here and allowing me to be the bookend of your conference experience. I'd love to hear from you. My business cards are up here. There's more information up here. Thank you. Talk to you soon.